this move that Joe Biden has made this week, by now declaring, his candidacy for president, well, let me get your standpoint on that first in a moment, because what I'm thinking is that, like, Joe Biden, yes, they're saying that he can be, he is a formidable opponent to Trump, where Trump is thinking, if Joe Biden comes in this motherfucker, like, we about to have issues. Right. However, I feel as though the allegations and stories and so forth that are coming out about him now, specifically about like the Anita Hill issue. I'm gonna actually play some clips about that in just a moment. But actually, let me play that now, and then I'm going to get your standpoint. So, Joe Biden, I want to kind of start this off first, sum this up. Joe Biden recently has been accused of, and we spoke about on the last podcast, being in somebody's personal space, like doing some creepy shit.
Yeah, he's very touchy-feely.
And we've had our thoughts on it. My thought is that shit is really creepy. I'm not too sure who does that, but men do that. In this Me Too movement era, we know this shit. So Joe Biden was on The View, and they questioned him about.
One of the things I read, she said, Speaker Nancy Pelosi said this. She said, to say I'm sorry you were offended is not an apology. It's I'm sorry I invaded your space. Now, you have come out and said, I get it, especially because we're in a different time now. We're in the Me Too movement. But are you sorry for what you did? Are you prepared to apologize to those women?
Look, here's the deal. I have to be, and everybody has to be, much more aware of the private space of men and women. It's not just women, but primarily women. And I am much more cognizant of that. But I am so, like, for example, I actually thought in my head when I walked out here, I mean, I know we're friends.
It's tricky.
No, but I have to be aware of it. So I have to be more cognizant, and we all have to be more. A woman or a man has a right to say, particularly women, say, no, this is not my space. They shouldn't have to say no. I should be able to read better. But I have never in my life done anything in approaching a woman that has been, other than trying to bring solace. I'm used to, like, one of your staff was producers, or I'm sure who it was backstage, saying, I remember you're the only guy last time you get up and you walked into the audience and talked to people. Yeah. I'm used to, I think it's really important we listen. I think those who are elected officials, it's important they listen and understand what people are going through and what they're concerned about, and let them know that you know. And so I don't think that's old-fashioned or new. I think it's everybody, we should be doing that. But I have to be more careful that I walk in, even including whether I sit down next to somebody and it's not invited to sit down. So that's my responsibility.
So what do you think about that so far?
I think it was like a huge non-apology.
I was thinking the same thing. They said, do you apologize? And he just went on his political rant. I mean, he apologized at Jace?
Guess. I don't know why it's so hard. And one thing that I'm starting to learn about Joe Biden is he does not like to apologize.
But it seems like politicians don't like to apologize to a certain extent. Like, Ilhan Omar, she apologized. Oh, I'm sorry. But these are new politicians. Like the old politicians, It doesn't seem like they need to apologize.
Well, he's been a senator for so long. I don't think he's had to apologize. And I think that, senators have a sort of egotism to them. Okay. So
like I've been in this for a long time, like almost as doctors are egotistical and so forth.
Yeah. They're in one of the highest offices in the land. They're highly respected. I think that's kind of
power can get to your head.
Yeah. I think it's been going downhill over the last couple of years. But I think that with him, he has a very hard time, even with like Anita Hill. Like it would have been so easy to give her a call and to say, I'm sorry for the way I treated you. And I think everybody would have, respected him for that, because they understand that what was happening was in the 80s. It was a different time.
We are back with
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that he behaved in a way that he thought was sufficient, but obviously it wasn't now.
Yep.
And he's trying to rectify it. But like the fact that he doesn't like to apologize, I think is going to hurt him in the long run.
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring up the Anita Hill thing. He also, which is good, The View this past week, they had him on, asked him some questions. As you said, it was a big non-apology. I agree too. It didn't seem as though he had a direct, and whoever, to those women who were in my cabinet and so forth, I'm sorry, I apologize for, what I've done. If there's anything that I could do, to rectify this in whatever way, shape, or form, is there something that I can do?
Right.
It's none of that. It was like, I have to do better. And, us as men and women have to think. And, I can't sit next to somebody. I'm just like, nah, Joe, you can't snuggle your nose next to your friends. I don't know who does that. I don't know if your friends do that now. I'm just like, nah, dude.
Like that's not what you were accused of doing.
I'm not going. Right? Yeah, I'm not going. You're not hugging up on somebody and sniffing the back of their nose. Back of their nose, back of their head. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's not that's just common sense. You should know this.
Like at least even if you're going to give a non-apology, like not apologize for the thing that you did.
Yeah.
Like, it's like somebody's like, oh, like you were sniffing the back of my head. I felt that was creepy. And you're like, look, we all have to know,
we have to
don't sit too closely to somebody else. And it's like, well, I didn't yell at you for that. Yeah. Like nobody said you can't go in there and hug the view holes.
Yeah, exactly.
You said that you can't be all up in their ear. Like, this is fragrant. Let me
smells so good. Your hair. What is that you're using?
Over there, like up on their neck. Like now I might feel a little bit weird about that. Like that was the weird part, not the hug. I give people hugs every day. I don't get accused of anything, right? Because I'm boom, hug, knock it out. Like,
but with the Anita Hill, just wanted to, we did touch on that a little bit. Joe Biden, during that entire, I would say, hearing and testimony from Clarence Judge Thomas.
Yeah.
Let's say Clarence Judge. Isn't it Judge Clarence Thomas?
Yeah.
Thank you. So Judge Clarence Thomas, he was, being, seen as a job interview, right? This was a job interview for the Supreme Court. Anita Hill came out and said that, Judge Clarence Thomas, did some inappropriate things and wanted to bring this out to light. And it seemed as though, Joe Biden wasn't really on her side. I don't know if it was victim blaming, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, that's, it was that questioning that needed to happen at that time, or the way that he put, that the questioning of her, is that something that needed to happen? And I know he actually did bring it up, but before I go into it, did you have any thoughts on Joe Biden and the Anita Hill situation?
Yeah, I just think that I think that hearing would be held a lot differently today. Imagine, like what happened with Kavanaugh, right? Where like Republicans wouldn't even touch it. They put a female prosecutor out there to get in there, And I think that back in the day, especially like in the 80s when this happened, we were so quick to blame the women, right?
Yeah, victim blaming.
Why were you there? What did you do?
What were you wearing?
Yeah, like, how did you engage? Did this really happen to you? Are you lying? Are you trying to bring this guy down?
Yeah.
And I think that, he was behaving in that atmosphere in that way as an older guy. He was older even back then.
Yeah.
So I think that you have to be able to look back at your past. There's going to be things that I would be able, if somebody questions me about some of the things I did when I was 16, 17, 18, I would have to go back and be like, yo, like at the time it was dope. Like all my friends were laughing, but like obviously I was wrong.
And I think that's the biggest topic that's going on right now is how far back do people go to go back into somebody's Twitter history or Instagram, and so forth. How far back is it okay? Because, you can have an example like Donald Trump where you can go back in his history and then come to the present and that motherfucker is still the same way.
Yeah.
But others have, you've grown.
Yeah.
You're more mature at this point in time, right? You would hope so.
Yeah.
So if the person thinks differently now, I mean, that's just a case for the overall population. How far do you go back for something like that?
I think you can bring up anything you want. I think if the person has truly matured, it's very easy for them to say sorry.
There you go.
Like back when you were 15, Spence, you were harassing this woman or whatever. Yo, I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to. Yeah. I was in the wrong at that point, right? I don't do that now.
Take ownership, responsibility.
I can understand being annoyed after a while. Like, I think the thing that they were doing with Kevin Hart was annoying.
Yeah.
Because they asked him to apologize for like every other day.
And he apologized before.
Trying to take away opportunities from him. And he's like, the stuff I do now is so like you see I'm a different person. You see how I try to, be a proponent for these communities.
Exactly.
So kind of bringing it up is at a certain point you're just being very vindictive and annoying.
Exactly.
But I think you should be able to apologize.
More mature. So I'm just going to go into what Joe Biden had to address about the Anita Hill situation.
You behaved, I guess, back in 1991 when you were on the Senate committee. You didn't vote for Clarence Thomas, right?
Not only didn't I vote for Clarence Thomas, I believed her from the beginning.
Yeah.
I was against Clarence Thomas. I did everything in my power to defeat Clarence Thomas, and he's won by the smallest margin anyone ever won going on the Supreme Court.
But she was not 100% happy with your discussion with her. So here's your opportunity right now to just say you apologize, you're sorry. I think we can clean this up right now.
Well, by the way, I did. I understand. Look, I'm not going to judge whether or not it was appropriate, whether she thought it was sufficient, but I said privately what I've said publicly. I am sorry she was treated the way she was treated. I wish we could have figured out a better way to get this thing done. I did everything in my power to do what I thought was within the rules to be able to stop things. But look, take a look at what's happened. What I did when we got through that god-awful experience she'd been through, she's one of the reasons why we have the Me Too movement. She's one of the reasons why I was able to finish writing the Violence Against Women Act. She's one of the reasons why I committed, and that was over. There'd never be a Judiciary Committee I was involved with that didn't have women on it. So I went out and got a commitment that the women I campaigned for would come on the committee. So she's responsible for significant changes, and she deserves credit for it. And
what do you think about that? She deserves credit. He apologized. He said he was sorry for the way that she felt as though she was treated.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I haven't, and that's probably my fault. I haven't watched the Anita Hill hearings. So
yeah, I haven't. Yeah. I know in our research, it's just been,
they're
touch and go.
They're long here. Like I barely had time to, research the bar ones that happened like last week.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say, it was 1991.
91.
Every woman who had gone through a hearing like that or through a case like that was probably treated poorly and probably deserves an apology from everybody involved, including their own lawyer. Yeah, probably. Right? Probably.
Yeah. Women's rights at that point in time was just coming up. If not,
America owes them an apology.
That's true.
I think that Joe Biden sometimes, I think that I feel just like over the past couple of weeks, I just feel like he has a huge ego, and I just feel like sometimes he doesn't he could just put things to rest so quickly sometimes if he just said he was sorry.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about Anita Hill? I'm sorry the way I treated her. I was doing the best I could.
Yeah.
But I obviously could have done better. And, from then on, I've tried to do better by doing A, B, and C. Like, just be very specific.
Kind of what he did in that.
But still, it was another non-apology. It's like, I apologize that she feels
that we treated her not like I did something and I'm sorry for the way I treated her.
I apologize.
Exactly.
I treated
for
her
my questioning my
way.
Exactly.
Even if I didn't think I was doing wrong at the time.